Welcome to Voices of the Community, which explores critical issues facing Northern California communities. We introduce you to the voices of community thought leaders and change makers who are working on solutions that face our fellow individual community members, neighborhoods, cities, and our region. This is George Koster, your host. This episode is part of our series exploring COVID-19's impact on nonprofits and small businesses in the San Francisco Bay Area. Back in April of 2020, when we decided to create this ongoing series on COVID-19's impact, first on nonprofits and then on small businesses in the San Francisco Bay Area, we, like you, had no idea how long the pandemic would go on and what the health and economic impact would be in our community. With vaccinations increasing, COVID-19 cases and deaths decreasing, we're now moving into the summer of 2021 with the reopening of the economy and all of the uncertainty of our ever-changing indoor and outdoor, vaccinated and unvaccinated protocols, and the politics that will drive how we all come back together as a unified or fractured community. We will continue to shine a spotlight on the nonprofits and small businesses that make up the fabric of our community, along with the founders and staff who are struggling to deal with the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on their operations, services, and sustainability until we can all get to the other side of the pandemic. Along the way, we will also share with you all the amazing solutions that our nonprofits, small businesses, foundations, and government leaders are working on to help us all get to the other side of the pandemic and come together to rebuild our communities with more economic, social, and environmental equality.
So I think just due to pervasive sexism, racism, classism in our society, the needs of under-resourced women of color are often overlooked. And so we serve a population that's often overlooked, and we're one of the few remaining girl-serving organizations in San Francisco. And so the girls we work with are just dynamic and savvy and creative, and we really support them with enriching programming that their schools don't. And then we also have this set of adult allies and mentors with them.
This is the Executive Director of Oasis For Girls, Menon. A poll from Mott Children's Hospital shows that 1 in 3 teen girls and 1 in 5 teen boys have experienced new or worsening anxiety from the pandemic. Poll shows that 46% of parents say their teen has shown signs of new or worsening mental health conditions since the beginning of the pandemic in March of 2020. Given the backdrop of COVID-19's impact on our mental health, and especially the health of our youth and teenagers, we wanted to share the wonderful work of Oasis for Girls. I'm joined remotely by Menon, the Executive Director of Oasis for Girls. Thanks for being here, Anu. As I said before we came on, I love all of your programming, the Rise, Create, and Vision programs. Could you please provide the audience just an overview of who Oasis for Girls is and then who you serve?
Okay. So Oasis for Girls, we provide intensive after-school programming to under-resourced girls of color who are in high school in San Francisco. So we were founded in 1999 by 2 youth workers who realized that young women were absent from the after-school programs they were supporting in the Soma neighborhood. And so after talking with girls and their families, they really learned that parents were concerned about sending their daughters to co-ed programs, and girls felt the programs were dominated by boys. And so that's why they created Oasis. And our secret sauce is that our programs are really modeled on youth development best practices that show that girls really thrive when they have multifaceted programming that is safe, it's in a safe environment, culturally relevant, and girl-focused with strong adult allies. And so, like you said, we offer 3 programs. They're called Rise, Create, and Envision. And so each one is offered 3 times a year, and we serve about 150 girls annually. And so the girls can take these programs anytime during high school in any order they want. And so we really get to follow the girls throughout their high school lives. I'll tell you about each one. So Rise is our life skills program. And so we focus on healthy bodies, healthy minds, and healthy relationships. And so the topics include like identity, women's rights, body image, media literacy. And at the end of the program, the girls go out, and now they do it online, and go on Instagram and really teach the community about a topic that they learned about, that they're passionate about. The second program is Create, which is our arts and activism program. And here the girls really learn about critical thinking and healthy self-expression through the arts. And as you know, public funding for the arts in high school has definitely been cut. So this is a really vital program for us. They start off by writing poetry, then they go to a local organization called the Women's Audio Mission and record their poetry to beats. And then they delve into a range of visual and performing arts like painting, drawing, comic book, illustration, photography, and dance. And then finally, we have Envision, which is our career exploration program. So girls start up at Oasis and they learn about just general job skills, resume writing, networking, interviewing. And then they go to UCSF. So they go to the Department of Neurosurgery for a 5-week internship. And there they get to shadow researchers, and pharmacists, doctors, nurses to get a firsthand view of the healthcare sector. And we're actually trying to add a new mental health component in a new program in July that really focuses on the teen mental health crisis and addressing that. So we're piloting that soon. And I think our program is also unique because we pay the girls a stipend to participate, both to value their time and to support them, which is also, an interesting programmatic aspect to us.
So much of what you do obviously is in person again, right? I mean, girls are there, you're in the same room, et cetera. So then COVID hits. How did you pivot? Everyone's favorite word. And then where are you in the, as we were saying before we came on, the magical reawakening of California where everyone's just supposed to all come back?
No, totally. So like you said, we've had 20 years of in-person programming at our offices in Soma, and it's a literal oasis for the girls. And so having to rapidly pivot to virtual programming was a daunting task, but I'm excited that our staff really rose to the occasion. And so rather than just turning on the video camera to our regularly scheduled programming, the program's team really drilled down into what's the essence of Oasis, right? And we were like, it's the secret sauce is our sisterhood, the safe space, and social justice. And so how do we ensure that we can maintain that virtually? And so first thing we did was to ensure that all the girls could actually participate virtually. So we purchased and loaned them laptops and hotspots and gave them these awesome art kits and other materials. And the staff, hand-delivered the kits to each girl's doorstep. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we also pay the girls a stipend to attend the program and have really found that the stipends have been critical during this time because the girls aren't just using it to buy fun items for themselves. They're really using that to support their families with food, with rent. And we realized that with shelter in place, our girls were really impacted because they're not just dealing with distance learning and Wi-Fi issues at home. They were also dealing with family stressors like parents losing their jobs and not having access to basic needs. So we added an extra, what we called week 0 to our session where each of the program coordinators had a one-on-one call with the girls to get to know them better and understand their needs. And then we kind of do constant mental health check-ins and just wellness check-ins for the girls throughout program, which, was a new angle. And then, we had to adapt all the curriculum to ensure they were really engaging and intentional in the virtual environment. And, we've actually received more applications than we ever have through COVID because I think the girls really need a safe and girl-centered space. So I think in terms of the reopening, quote unquote, piece, we are continuing our virtual programming this summer because of all the different changing rules. We weren't sure a couple of months ago if we could reopen. And we're just trying to figure out what the best way to reopen is. I think like everyone else is as well. We know it's important for the girls to have that literal oasis and be away from the stressors of life. But we have a small office, so we want to make sure that we can be safe. And like I said, we had a lot of success with our virtual programming and we were able to increase numbers and demographics. So we want to be able to serve a broader population, but also create that oasis. And so we're really just kind of debating what we're going to do about that. But hopefully we're planning to reopen in the fall at this point.
I think one of the big aha moments for everybody this last 14 plus months is what everyone's calling the kind of hybrid model. I've heard it so much from all of my conversations with performing arts organizations, for example, but even the social service organizations. So do you feel when Oasis for Girls comes back that you'll continue the kind of hybrid model so that you could extend your reach and impact?
We're trying to decide that because we have a tiny staff. There's just 6 of us. And so we're trying to figure out scheduling for that, right? Like how do you have some people on video, right? And some people live. And so with that kind of a staff, we realize that our impact is really in the live programming. But one thing that we've learned is that having had to develop a whole virtual curriculum, we have a really strong virtual curriculum now, as well as 20 years of in-person. So over the years, we've gotten requests from girl serving organizations in California and nationally. Like, how do we start an Oasis for Girls in our area? We've never had the bandwidth to support that. So what we're doing this year is taking our virtual and all the learnings that we've made and documenting the Oasis Way curriculum, and for both virtual and in-person learning. And we're hoping to start a train the trainer program for other organizations in 2022 so that we can actually keep expanding our reach and helping to serve this kind of demographic in other areas as well.
One of the wonderful things that came out of the pandemic.
Definitely.
So what would you say has been the largest impact of Oasis for Girls on our girls and young women here in San Francisco?
So I think just due to pervasive sexism, racism, classism in our society, the needs of under-resourced women of color are often overlooked. And so we serve a population that's often overlooked, and we're one of the few remaining girls serving organizations in San Francisco. And so the girls we work with are just dynamic and savvy and creative, and we really support them with enriching programming that their schools don't. And then we also have the set of adult allies and mentors with them. So I think that our biggest impact is helping this generation of girls really build sisterhood, understand social justice issues, and really advocate for change in their communities in high school and beyond that.
And could you please share one of your favorite stories?
Yeah, I think I have a couple. So, we were really nervous about virtual programming. It was, most people were really nervous about getting on Zoom in general. And so we were like, how are we going to do this and create that kind of community? And so I sat in on one of our programs in the early days of virtual programming. And after a 2-hour Zoom session, one of the girls said that she felt, this is her first 2-hour Zoom session, she felt more connected with the girls in her Oasis virtual program after those 2 hours than she had with her high school class after 2 months of daily Zoom with them. So we really created that community and been able to put that into virtual. And, we really just had girls get out of unhealthy relationships and encourage their friends to do the same after learning about, dating violence, and really have them talk to staff about trauma and get connected with the resources they need. So that's kind of another favorite of mine as well.
And so folks who are listening to the show today, how can they support Oasis for Girls? Obviously, there's donations. Can folks volunteer? Are there programs that you need specific help for?
So I think that, as I mentioned, we're really trying to expand our current programming. We've done the virtual and the in-person programming. We are trying to add in additional programming around mental health because, as everybody knows, the teen mental health crisis during shelter in place has just, gotten horrible. And we've incorporated mental health curriculum into our different programs over the years, but we really want to pilot a new separate mental health program that we're starting in a 4-session pilot this summer, and we're hoping to expand. So I think that right now our biggest need is, of course, funding. July is our annual summer fundraising drive. So I would, encourage your listeners to really consider learning more and making a donation on our website, which is oasisforgirls.org. We have our annual gala coming up, which is Shine. It's going to be virtual on September 23rd. And it's a really great way to really hear from and get energy and inspiration from our girls who are the main speakers and focus of it. And we also have a few volunteer opportunities. We have Activate, which is our volunteer program, and that's a year-long commitment. Then we have these kind of one-off things like Career Fridays, which is a virtual career panel we host several times a year with women in different professions. And then our girls, they can learn about different paths and opportunities. And we're also looking for advisory board members. So you can learn about that, get signed up for our newsletter at oasisforgirls.org.
And so because you also do these really wonderful paid stipend kind of workforce pathways, if an employer was listening to the show, how would they get engaged with Oasis for Girls?
Definitely. I mean, we are always looking for, we have our main programs with UCSF right now. That's kind of been the pilot for this workforce development piece. And we're always looking for other corporations and other employers to do kind of career days or career panels and see how we can expand those relationships. And so definitely reach out to us through our website. We have a forum. And then we're always, looking for mentors as well and corporate sponsorships for our Shine Gala, which is a great way to just kind of learn more about the work that we're doing.
Thank you. So final question for our interview today. What would be some of the positive things that could come out of the crisis to support our girls?
I think that COVID hit at the same time as an increased focus on racial justice issues, right? And so people had time to think and understand about the real deep-seated inequalities that we're facing in our communities. But I've also been really inspired because folks have really wanted to become active, right, and make an impact and do something. So I think this crisis has really brought about renewed seeking of knowledge, more altruism, and a deeper sense of how we're connected to each other. We always talk about in orientation with our girls that Oasis is this web of connection, right? So the girls are at the center, and then the next layer out is the staff, and then we have the board and the volunteers, and then the community, right? Like you and all of your listeners, we have this web of connection that's all holding us together, and we can support each other. And I think that that's really come out during COVID, how connected we are and what an impact we can make by supporting each other. So I hope we create that and keep that sense of community as we move forward for our girls.
Thank you. Great insights. So thank you, Anu, for sharing Oasis for Girls work today. We'll make sure that the listeners have all of your contact information, website, social media, so they can follow Oasis for Girls and get engaged in the work to help your mission. And hopefully, folks can become sponsors, mentors, volunteers, participants. So please stay safe and healthy out there as we work our way through this very strange new normal.
Thank you, George.
That's it for this episode of Voices of the Community. You've been listening to the voice of the Executive Director of Oasis for Girls, Anu Menon. To find out more about Oasis for Girls' Rise, Create, and Envision programs, as well as getting engaged as a supporter, mentor, and employer, please go to oasisforgirls.org. Anu had mentioned that girls from in the Oasis for Girls programs participate in Women's Audio Mission to develop their storytelling skills. You can find out more about Women's Audio Mission in our interview with Helena Botkin-Levy and Leah King in episode 55. Please tune in to KSFP 102.5 FM to next week's show on July 8th at 8:30 a.m., where we share the voices of the San Francisco Radio Club about the 100-plus-year-old club of amateur radio enthusiasts and the Bayview Opera House about their neighborhood-centric support during the pandemic and how they are reopening and hosting live performances. We hope that you enjoyed the insights, points of view, and personal stories from the voices of changemakers and their nonprofits and small businesses featured in this series. To find out more and get engaged with the nonprofits, small businesses, and staff members featured in the series, please go to my website, georgecoster.com, and click on Voices of the Community to find links to the extended versions of these interviews and to listen to the entire series. After listening to these stories, we hope that you will consider making a donation and volunteering to provide a hand up to your fellow community members. I want to thank my associate producer, Eric Estrada, and Casey Nance at Citron Studios, along with the wonderful crew at the San Francisco Public Press and KSFP. Voices of the Community is a member of Intersection for the Arts, which allows us to offer you a tax deduction for your contributions. Please go to georgecoster.com and click on the donate link to make a donation to help us provide future shows just like this one. While you're on our website, you can enjoy our archived past shows, which feature community voices working on solutions to critical issues facing Northern California communities. And you can sign up for our newsletter to find out more about future shows, as well as shows and events from the organizations that are included in our episodes. Take us along on your next COVID walk by subscribing to Voices of the Community on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and Google Podcast, or wherever you get your podcast. You can follow us on Twitter at George Coster, and we'd love to hear from you with feedback and show ideas, so send us an email to george@georgecoster.com. I'm George Coster in San Francisco, and thank you for listening.